Hello again, everyone. This is Louis Setti, the Blue Ridge Reporter, speaking on December 1st, 2011, about the unprecedented event yesterday, November 30th, by which six central banks announced a coordinated easy money policy to bail out banks and deeply indebted countries in Europe, banks in the United States, the economies around the world, all done by unelected officials in a coordinated and, I must say, impressive display of how they can act quickly and with a unified focus. Not only was the substance of this plan a unified substance, but even the detail of the announcement, for as I understand it, it was made 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time before the New York stock markets opened. This is the New World Order. Unelected officials around the world control the money supply, more or less, throughout the world, and thereby shifting the value of money and what it can be used for from those who are savers to those who are beneficiaries of this system. Those parties being those attached to the central banks, of course, the major brokerage houses, the major corporations, the governments that thrive on cheap money by which they could incur debts by making promises of benefits and then having the cheap money to pay off the debts, paying back in depreciated money, so the actual purchasing power of what the creditors get back is not what was lent to them in the first place. It is a shifting mechanism away from savers and those outside the system to those who are inside the system, and even those who tangentially benefit by the system because their incomes derive from the federal government or businesses associated with those enterprises I mentioned before. So if there's any doubt about the New World Order, yesterday you saw it in action. It was depicted on the news as a financial event. Actually, it was a very impressive political demonstration by the central players in the New World Order, which of course include the leaders of nations and the central banks. If there's any doubt about the New World Order, please go to the search bar on YouTube and type in George Bush Sr. or just George Bush New World Order. You'll see videos of public statements, one at a message, the State of the Union message that he delivered some 20 years ago, and he spoke quite proudly of implementing the New World Order, and he said we will succeed, and they very well may, because there's no opposition in either party in this country, and I don't know any significant opposition in Europe myself otherwise. So we have only people like Ron Paul, maybe his son, maybe some others I don't know, who are speaking about ending the Federal Reserve, and maybe there are counterparts in other countries doing the same, but they are, as they say, the wee small voices. People like Newt Gingrich, for example, who would typify an insider, speaks always of reforming the UN or reforming the Central Reserve, the Federal Reserve, or changing the leader of the Federal Reserve, but of course always keeping the UN and the Federal Reserve in place. So the system, this New World Order, for the benefit of the elites, will continue. All those meetings that you've read about and heard, maybe in passing, not paying much attention, about the G7 meetings of political and financial leaders from 7 countries, or the G20 meetings of the same people from different countries, or the G whatever the number is. It's the group of financial and political leaders from around the world meeting for what purpose? To talk about coordinated financial plans, the value of money for the benefit of their joint regimes. people in the inside and in the know, so to speak, those who benefit by the New World Order in their respective countries have more in common transnationally with their counterparts in other countries than they do with the folks here, because their real interest lies in those in the relationships they have to continue with this program. Their real interest does not lie with us. We exist to get them elected and keep them in office so this can continue. One man said to me one time, "Don't be talking about this conspiracy, you'll embarrass Christians." Yet he had no problem a few years ago with bumper stickers that said Bush Cheney. The Bushes are the ones, among others, and you can see it on YouTube, who have for many decades been involved in advancing the New World Order by conspiracy, because it didn't happen by accident. It happened over many decades, in fact going back to the end of World War II, and some would argue even earlier. Don't forget, the Federal Reserve was begun, I said World War II, World War I. Don't forget, the Federal Reserve was begun in 1913. So, in any event, what's the purpose of this? To convince you of my idea? No. Because if you're not convinced, I'm not going to convince you in a few minutes on YouTube. But I would just suggest this. Listen, observe, draw conclusions, and give those who are talking about the New World Order and the conspiratorial action that got us to this point, give them a fair hearing. Then make your own decision. You're not going to hear this on the news or in the mainstream media. You're going to hear the opposing Johnny One-Notes not even recognizing that such a thing could possibly exist. Yesterday was a very significant day. Let him who has eyes see. This is Louis Setti, the Blue Ridge Reporter.